and I want to make sure we get everything in. So we'll get started if that's okay with everyone. My name is Rachel Dilhoff, and I am a health and human science educator in Adams County, Indiana. And with me today, I have Annie Markham, who is Annie, I will let you introduce yourself because I want to make sure I get your titles right. So
Thank you. Yes. Hey, everybody. I am a 500-hour yoga instructor, which just means that I have the sort of highest level of basic yoga instruction certification that you can have. And then I'm also a certified iRest teacher, which iRest is just a particular form of meditation. So we can talk a little bit more about that later. Thanks, Rachel.
thank you, Annie. So today, well, because Annie is the expert of mindfulness, and as you see from the title, we're going to talk about mindful eating. And Annie will go into a little exercise for everyone here in a bit as well. Some other things that we are going to talk about, if I can get my screen to advance here. All right, perfect. We're going to talk about what mindfulness is, why you should even care about it in the first place. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between mindless eating and mindful eating, because once we talk about mindless eating, we will probably all feel a little guilty. I know I did when I did my research on that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about portion and energy in the energy equation. We'll talk about some tips and tricks to stay on track. And then Annie will go through a mindful eating exercise with you all. So we have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. And I will tell you now, just kind of a little preference here. I have two screens going. So if it looks like I'm not looking at the camera, it's because I'm looking at one of my other screens. So it's not that I'm not paying attention to you. I'm just looking at one of my many screens here in front of me. All right. So let's dive right into it and talk about what mindfulness is. So it's focusing on the present moment. Acknowledging and accepting your thoughts and feelings and your body sensation. So it's one thing to read it on this screen, but it's another thing to hear about what mindfulness is in, I believe, an Australian accent. So I found this video and I love it. And it just really explains what mindfulness is in a very brief, to the point way. So let me play that here for you.
Just as exercise helps us take care of our bodies, mindfulness is a skill that keeps our minds healthy. Mindfulness helps us perform at our best and better navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life. Mindfulness is noticing and being curious about what's happening right now. It's the opposite of being on autopilot, when our bodies are doing one thing and our minds are somewhere else, often thinking about the past or worrying about the future. When we're mindful, we engage our senses deliberately, and we really take in the things that we can see, smell, hear, taste, and touch. Just as we can build our muscles by going to the gym, we can build our mindfulness muscle through regular practice, known as meditation. All it takes is a few minutes a day to see the benefits. So find the time. Your mind will thank you for it.
So again, I love that video, not just because I love the accent, but because of the information there. It's great information, to the point, and mindfulness is so important. It's something that is free to practice, easy to do, but the hard part is finding the time to do it. And just like they say, the number one reason a lot of people don't exercise is because they say they don't have the time. Just like exercising our body, exercising our mind with mindfulness is just as important. And that carries over into mindful eating. So thinking of this definition of mindfulness, how many of you practice being mindful when it comes to eating or when you pick out your food? If you want, yes, put your thumbs up. There's a little emoji you can put up if you think yes. There's a thumbs down emoji if no, or you don't you don't put anything up on the screen, that means you don't know if you practice it. Maybe you do without realizing it, maybe not. All right, perfect. I see some thumbs up. Very good. Yes. All right, lots of thumbs up. This is impressive. So when you practice this mindful eating, it does take practice to do. And what does that mean exactly? So it takes the concept of mindfulness, which we just heard about, and it applies it to why, when, where, what, and how you eat. So a way to think of that too is when you're eating, how many times do we think about what it took to get that food on your plate and into your body? I mean, a lot of us, myself included, I'm guilty of this. I just go to the fridge, pick out what I need, and I eat it. A lot of times I eat it while I'm chasing around a toddler or trying to, catch up on the news or writing emails and doing all kinds of things, which we'll talk about that in a moment. But I don't appreciate necessarily all the time where this food comes from. So when we take that concept of mindful eating, we are applying that to this cycle. And it's that mindful eating cycle. So, why do I eat? That's one important question you can ask. So, obviously, are you hungry? Are you eating because you're hungry? Are you eating because you're at a party or at an event and you feel weird and you're kind of using that as a way to cope with those feelings? When do I want to eat? Do you plan it throughout your day? Do you want to eat when you have time during your day for a lunch break at work? That's an example of that. So what do I eat? Now this is a big one because it's so easy to go to your cabinet, go to your refrigerator and pick out the easiest thing that you have, which oftentimes is very processed. It takes a few minutes you just open up a package, you eat it. Maybe you're eating it rushed, which kind of goes into the how. Or maybe you have some extra time and you're really enjoying what you're eating. But those are just some things to think about as well. And then that goes into the how much, which we're going to talk about portions here in just a moment. But when something tastes really good, a lot of times, like let's say potato chips or your candy bar or something like that, you eat and you eat and you eat, and then before you know it, your bag's gone and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. But thinking about that, paying attention to your body, knowing when to eat, when to stop, that's very important. And then where do you invest your energy with that? So example is, let's say you're preparing for a race or you're preparing to go to the gym. You want to fuel your body for that. And that energy, what is that going to? So this is that mindful eating cycle. And it seems like a lot of process to do something so simple that maybe we don't take the time to really think about. But whether or not we want to admit it or whether or not we realize it, we do go through this cycle. But bringing that awareness to ourselves that we should do this is very, very, very important. And then I mentioned too the mindless eating and the mindful eating. So I love these pictures on the screen, especially if you look at that bottom left corner. I'm not sure how many of you have watched Legally Blonde when she's going through her breakup and she's eating her feelings. That is an example of mindless eating. It's coping. There is a presentation in this series on food and mood. I believe it's next week, and that's going to be taught by Abigail Cray, and excellent. It's going to get way more into detail with this topic, but it's important to mention now. Mindless eating, again, I mentioned how I sometimes am chasing a toddler around and I don't even realize I've eaten half the time, or I'm eating scraps while she's throwing stuff across the room. So again, it's distracted. I'm not enjoying it. I know I need to eat, but it's rushed. It's not like I'm sitting down thinking about how it got to my plate or anything like that, or how I feel as I'm eating it. Another time too is considering the meal as an end product, like I said, thinking about what it took to get that to your plate. I know I grew up on a farm and we had chickens, and every year, as kind of gruesome as it sounds, it was our family, we got together and we processed chickens as a family. And a lot of my friends might not necessarily have realized that that chicken that they're eating for dinner, that was once a living thing that a farmer was taking care of. So thinking about that, it makes you appreciate what you're eating a little bit more. Same thing with that tortilla on your plate or whatever. How did it get to that point? Again, you don't really think about that because you're thinking about, wow, that is really good. That I know I like to eat that, so that's what I'm going to eat. But taking that minute to realize how it got there in the first place. And then that kind of leads us into that mindful eating, listening to your body when you're full. And oh my gosh, I don't know how many times I've been somewhere and the food is just so good. And then I have that, like the food sweats after because I've definitely overdone it and I feel really sick, but it tasted so good. Now, if I would have listened to my body a little bit more and known when to stop, I wouldn't have felt sick after, even though I can argue that it was totally worth it. But you want to listen to your body. Eating with others at set times. So that's another thing too. Something that I know my family, we really struggle with. Again, I'm going to keep bringing up my toddler. She's fantastic, but she also can cause a lot of stress when it comes to mealtime because I feel like we are catering to her. We're on her time. She kind of decides when we eat, and we have a process of, okay, she's hungry now. We have to make her meal, and then the whole cleanup stuff, that's a whole other deal. But we need to, my husband and I, we always tell ourselves we need to make the time to eat as a family and not in shifts. So it's a practice. Mindfulness is not something that you necessarily can snap your fingers and do it. It takes some practice. It takes some really conscious efforts to make it the way that it should be. So some other things to think about when mindful eating, just observing when you feel full or hungry, taking note of that. I know a lot of times too, depending on your job or what you're doing throughout the day, maybe you've had some days where you've been so busy and you don't even realize that you're hungry. And then all of a sudden you feel sick and you think, okay, why do I feel this way? Oh my gosh, I haven't eaten all day. Observing that, just knowing when that sensation comes on, that you need to take that time to fuel your body so that you can continue throughout your day and reach the tasks that you need. There's no judgment. I think a lot of times too, if you eat a certain amount of food, or maybe you're hungry at different times, that somebody would say, okay, why you just ate? I can't believe you're hungry again. There should be no judgment of that. You should, again, observe your feelings. And if you're hungry, fuel your body. If you're full, you can stop. There's no shame in any of those feelings. There's no judgment towards that. Same thing with reaction to food, what you like or don't like. I personally do not like eggs. Anyway, I have tried them all ways. I do not like them. And I grew up in a family of farmers, and they always had fresh eggs on hand, and I would never want to eat them. And they were like, how are you not eating this? And I just didn't want to. And that's okay. If you don't like something, that's completely fine not to like it. And that's, people shouldn't, again, goes back to that judgment, shouldn't judge you on what you like or don't like. So taking that into consideration. And then goes down to savoring. So appreciating the flavors, taking that time to really think about the texture, the flavor, again, how it got to your plate in the first place. So those are all some ways that you can be successful with mindful eating. is to remember some of those steps there. So based on what you've heard to this point, do you pay attention to portion sizes? Because we're going to talk about portion in just a second, and that kind of goes back to that judgment as well. But when it comes to portion sizes, thumbs up if you pay attention, thumbs down if you don't, or if you don't know, you can leave your screen blank too. All right, I see some thumbs up. Good. So portion size, especially when we talk about, those feelings of being full and everything like that, it's important to remember that. And we're going to talk about how exercise fits into all this here in just a moment. But a lot of people, they think that what they get in the restaurant is a portion size. And if somebody says, okay, a cookie is 55 calories. So if you look here, and there's going to be a handout on this. So at the very right, the bottom of the right, you see there's 2 different cookies. And if somebody says, okay, 1 chocolate chip cookie is 55 calories, but they give you that big cookie, you might think that, all right, I'm eating 55 calories. What you don't realize is that is several portions put into 1 cookie. And all of those calories add up over time. And over time too, I don't have it on this screen or in this presentation, but as time has gone on, especially in the US, portion sizes have grown as well. And it's okay, the days of you have to eat everything on your plate, that's not necessarily, you don't have to do that. And that goes back to that judgment. It's important to be aware of your portion sizes and to know, okay, I'm going to listen to my body when I'm full. Just because it's in front of me doesn't necessarily mean I have to eat it. And little things add up as well. So your salad, you might think, I'm doing a great job eating this salad. And then you have like a half a cup of ranch dressing because let's be real, that's going to make it taste better. But that salad that might have been 100 calories is now 500-600 calories. Being aware of that too. So the little things that add into that. So this portion distortion, again, it's looking at over time how portion sizes have gotten bigger because we value more for our money and not necessarily more for our waistlines or what that's going to mean in the future. And when it comes to portion control, there are some mind tricks that can help us stay on track aside from really measuring out what we're having. So like chips, for example, we look at the nutrition label on the back of the chips. So that 1 bag might have 7 servings in that. And we don't necessarily measure out each of those servings, but being mindful of that, and maybe that'll help keep us on track, is to measure that out. Some other ways that can help us with portion control, using smaller plates and bowls. And that kind of goes back to that serving size with the chips, for example. So I'm not saying you have to measure out 7 different bowls, but just say, okay, I've got this little bowl, that's all I need, that's 1 serving. Using taller glasses, which I thought that was really interesting. So for example, if you have 2 glasses, both with the same amount of liquid, our brains will always estimate that there's more in the tall, narrow glass than in the short, wide glass, which I thought was really interesting. So that's kind of that mind trick that can keep us on track when it comes to our portion size of liquids. Putting away leftovers before eating, that's another trick that helps with portion control. And my favorite, which again, I'm sure we are all guilty of some way, shape, and form, is turning off the TV and putting our phones down. So I love this picture because I don't know how many times, my husband and I will be eating on the very rare times that we're actually eating at the same table. And we're doing emails, we're catching up, and we're not in the moment. We're eating mindlessly. Who knows what's on my plate and who knows how much I ate? I'm not paying attention to it. So turning off those devices, very helpful when it comes to portion control, slowing down. And that kind of goes back to that savoring, really taking the moment to appreciate that, excuse me, what we're eating. Making healthy choices easy. So one way to do that is to have healthy snacks on hand. You're gonna open up the fridge, and instead of, all right, well, I know I should be eating healthier, make it easy. Make it that go-to snack. Cutting up some peppers, having something already portioned out that's healthy alternative. That's gonna help too. And don't forget exercise. And again, exercise, I have a background in exercise science, so I really like to emphasize the importance of exercise, moving our bodies. It helps in so many ways, and whether or not we realize it, it does help when it comes to portion control and making the right food choices. And that exercise factors into something called the energy balance equation. So calories in, calories out. So sounds very simple. The more calories we consume and the less we exercise, or the less energy we expend, then there's going to be a deficit, and it's going to it's going to result in some weight gain. So then the opposite is true. If the calories in is less than calories out, then there's going to be a calorie deficit, and there's going to be weight loss. Another way to think of this too, and in a previous position, I worked in employee wellness, and we did a lot of comparison of, okay, if I consume XYZ, what is it going to cost me to work that off? So I love this example. It's kind of ridiculous if you think about it, because I don't know who's going to be ironing for 4.5 hours, but it just puts it in perspective. So that one bottle of wine, you might think it's so innocent and whatever, it goes down so easy or whatnot. That's about 550 calories. And to work that off, 4.5 hours of ironing. I'm not sure I've ironed 4.5 hours in my lifetime, let alone at one time, but it gets you thinking. There's some other examples too. Maybe that bottle of wine equals an hour on the treadmill, walking at 4 miles an hour. I don't know. I'm kind of just pulling that out of thin air, but that kind of puts it in perspective of, okay, do I really need this, and what's it going to cost me in the long run? So as we kind of end out my area, and before we go into Annie's, just some things that we need to remember to help us really think about our portions and really think about mindful eating, slowing down, taking a break to enjoy what you're eating. Change that relationship with food. If it's something toxic, really figure out that relationship. Food is not an enemy. It's really there to help us. So think about how it makes us feel, and go for the types of food that makes us feel good. Get that pleasure from the food that we eat. Make healthier choices. Put away the distractions, put down the phone, turn off the TV, fuel your body with the things that you need. And then eat healthier in a more balanced way. So that's sort of that end result of that. And then it might sound so easy and you think, I can do this. But again, life happens. There are a lot of things in our life that get in the way, and it pushes that mindful eating down on our priority list. So practice does make perfect. And I'm going to have Annie, the expert here, kind of go through what that looks like. So Annie, you got the floor now.
All right. Thanks, Rachel. That was a great presentation, very informative. All right, so everybody, I'm just going to do a quick mindfulness exercise. This can be applied to eating, but my goal and intention with this particular exercise is that you can apply it to every aspect of your life, so that hopefully you weave it in and it becomes more of a habit than just something you do when you eat. So if you're able and it's safe to do so, please close your eyes. Take a moment just to settle in where you are. Start first by feeling your body. noticing what comes to you as an observation, like the felt sense of your feet on the floor, perhaps the air on your skin, sensation of warmth or coolness. And now draw your attention to your breath. We'll take 3 deep breaths together. So when you're ready, exhale everything out completely, let the breath empty. And then take a deep breath in, envisioning the air filling your lungs and feeling the breath move through your body. When you get to the top, pause. And then exhale, let the breath out completely, nice and slow, no rush. Feel the breath empty your body. When you get to the bottom of that exhale, see if you can pause there for just a moment. And then again, deep breath in, fill up. Notice how the air enters your body, where you feel the sensations of that breath. Exhale, let it go completely, releasing the breath. Feel how it empties out. And take that moment at the end of the exhale just to pause. One more together, deep breath in, fill up. Again, when you get to the top, hold for a moment. And then open your mouth and just sigh it out. Good, and now take a moment to go through your senses. So again, what do you feel in this moment? Body, breath, welcoming the senses. And see if whatever is here, you can meet it without judgment. Recognizing that what's here is just here. You can't control it. You can simply be with it and allow it. From this non-judgmental space, perhaps you can set an intention to come back into your day with a little more mindfulness, which means that you're paying attention to your body, to your breath, to your senses, to this moment just as it is. And now gently blink open your eyes. And we'll come back and Rachel's gonna lead us in a little questionnaire at the end.
Thank you so much, Annie. I don't know about you, but I know I feel way more relaxed right now. And that's something that, again, when it comes to eating, and I don't imagine us all before every meal taking the time to, close our eyes, but if we can, we should. I mean, think about that. That took a minute to do, a minute or two to do. It's very simple. It's free. You can do it anywhere. It helps too when being stressed out. So that's just that great tool from an expert of a simple way that we can all be more mindful. So I really appreciate Annie taking the time to lead us through that. And I know Annie will have a handout at the end too that really explains a little bit more about herself, about paying attention, that mindfulness piece. So it's great information. I highly recommend taking the time to read through that. Here we go. So asking yourself these questions, we're going to kind of end it with this. Why do you eat? Remember, being mindful versus being mindless. When do I eat? Pay attention to your body. What are your hunger cues? What are your cues when you're satisfied? Is that you feel full? You need to unbuckle your pants. Maybe you want to get to that feeling full before you get to that point. How do you eat? Making time to sit down, not feeling rushed, putting the devices away, very important. Where do I eat? So it should be, again, I struggle reading this because I know I struggle with this part myself. Taking the time to sit at the table, not rushing around, whatever that might look like. It takes practice. It's not easy. It's not going to be perfect for everyone, but finding what works best for you. And then paying attention to portion sizes, which we went through that a little bit, and there's going to be a handout in this follow-up email about portion sizes. And then I don't have it on here, but exercise, making sure that we fuel our body to exercising, very important. Adults should get 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity a week. So that evens out to about 20 minutes a day. And it could be as simple as 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there throughout the day. But that's a whole presentation on at another time for that. But again, very important. So I thank you all so much for taking the time to listen. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email. I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. And just like all presentations, we have a little survey. If you wouldn't mind taking the time to answer some questions about what you learned and help us make these presentations even better for you in the future. So thank you all. I know we might have, we're a minute over time, but if you have any questions, put them in the chat box and or send an email and we would be more than happy to answer any of them. Thank you all.